want to fend for myself, and I want to build people up for them to fend for themselves. Hey everybody, welcome to the Free Like Me podcast. I am Clark Fredericks. We got another exciting edition today. We have Annie Johnson in the house, who left her little small town in Michigan to come to the Big Apple as a ballerina. And let's just say it didn't turn out as planned. Annie sort of went off the skids, but she's back, and she's here to share all her life lessons with you. I want to thank you all for joining me each week. Please go to YouTube and hit the subscribe button, because they got these stupid analytics. You got to have subscribers to get great guests. So I need you to hit the subscribe button. And are you ready? Let's meet Annie.
Hi, Clark.
Hey,
Thank
Annie.
you so much for having me.
Awesome. I'm excited for this.
Yeah.
I guess we should say we met years ago in church when you were getting baptized. And you weren't a little baby.
I wasn't a little baby, and I should just say, too, I'm not religious either. Right. We both have a mutual friend.
Yeah.
I think you just had on your podcast.
Yeah, Father Rob.
Yes,
Yep.
Father Rob. I think I had just met you like 2 months after you had just gotten out of prison.
All right.
He asked me, he was like, do you want me to baptize you as kind of like just a cleansing, as let's start you over in life. And I was like, sure, let me get a white dress. And that was like the most exciting part for me. And I think you were there with your mother, and he was like, hey, let me introduce you to Clark. You know what? How about you guys go on a date? And like, I think we like went out on a date, and like, it definitely didn't work out, but like we became good friends, and here we are now. And I'm so glad to have you in my life.
Yeah, it's like 7 years ago, something like that.
Yeah,
6, 7
it's
years
been a
ago.
long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I never even knew, like, we didn't even get into like your history, your story. We got into your present, which
Yes.
was you had just gotten out of rehab.
Yeah, I think we were both still like in present, like trauma
Yeah.
back then, and still in a lot of processing what was going on. So I think like we're in much different places now.
Yeah, I mean, it took me, I don't even know how long once I got released from prison to like finally just, I don't know if normal's the right word, but I was out of sorts for a long time.
Yeah, I remember like we went for a walk, and like it was just in silence, and you like stopped and you were like, could you just talk? And I was like, I don't know about what. Like, I just like couldn't speak for a while.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
But you're going to speak today, Annie.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're going to lay it on the line.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to put it all out there.
So I gave a little hint, about coming to New York City to be a ballerina.
Yeah.
But before we get into that, so take me back to your earlier years growing up in Michigan.
Okay. Yeah.
What area did you grow up in?
So I was born in Traverse City. It's a little upper Michigan. And we moved later to East Lansing, which is a big college town. We moved there while my mom was getting her doctorate. My dad played more of a stay-at-home father role while he was bringing us up. I had a older sister. She's 8 years older than me. I had 2 older brothers, and there was a large age gap between all of us. Like I said, she was 8 years older than me, and my oldest brother was 7 years older than me, and my youngest brother was 5 years older than me.
Oh.
So I was always kind of the youngest and striving to be a lot like them. And they were just always great at everything they did. Like, my brothers were star football players, and my sister was just this amazing dancer, a ballerina, and I wanted to be exactly like her. And once I was old enough to be put into dance, it was just, I kind of thrived there, and it was my escape.
That was your home away from home?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what age did you start this?
I think probably 4.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Wow. What kind of student were you? Were
In,
you
in
were you
so in school, I was a horrible student.
were you?
Yeah, I had no interest in learning at all. I didn't really fit in at all. I just struggled. I hated it. I hated every second of it. Um, it was confusing for me. And then outside of that, in dance, I just thrived. It was my escape. It's where I always wanted to be. I put everything into that. It's from like the youngest age, I was like, this is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. And it felt so second nature to me. Like it was everything.
Right.
Hmm.
And did you party in high school? Was that a factor in your life?
So here's the thing. My siblings all went away. And then there was me. And once they went away to college, my sister moved to New York. I was left alone with my parents, and I think that's when their marriage, I saw, it's sort of just started to fall apart. They started to argue, and I felt kind of in the middle of it. And
They didn't have all the other kids to distract them from each other.
yeah,
Just you
exactly.
now, right?
Yeah, and I really saw myself as being the fixer. I wanted to fix, their relationship. And that's when I started to party a lot, was in high school, and I was alone. I would dance and then go out on the weekends, and being in a big college town, me and my friends would like go out to the frat houses, we would walk into town and just show up at a frat house and,
Right.
Party with the college kids. And
Now, East Lansing, is that Michigan State or Michigan?
that's Michigan State.
Okay,
Yeah. Very big. It's like a Big Ten college town.
Right.
And
you can just get right into these frat parties?
yeah,
No problem.
you just walk, you just walk in and they'll hand you a beer.
Right.
Yeah. And so that was like my first experience with partying. And I think my junior year of high school, it was my junior year, I got arrested for underage drinking. And my dad had to pick me up from the police station at like 2 a.m. And I remember him just being so disappointed in me. And and that was a huge deal.
Right.
And I think that was like the first big red flag,
I got a drunk driving a couple weeks after I graduated high school before
Yeah.
I went away to college.
Yeah.
And my father wasn't one who like ever slapped or hit or used a belt or anything like
Yeah.
that. But when I came home and told him, last night I got a drunk driving,
Yeah.
he put his head down on the table on like this for like the longest minute. And then he looked up at me and he goes, "Son, you have totally disappointed me." And that was like,
Oh.
like, just hit me
the
instead.
worst.
Yeah,
The
it's
worst.
the worst. You
Yeah.
know?
Oh,
Yeah, I was just like,
yeah. Just
So you got the
disown
same
me.
thing.
Why don't you?
Right.
Yeah, we've come to a point now where we can kind of laugh about it, where we can laugh about it. But at the time, it just destroyed me. Um,
And what's going on with your parents at this point? Like,
Um,
are they salvaging their relationship or is it
no,
deteriorating?
it's definitely getting worse. And I just want to throw in, things are also getting weird. And I didn't realize how weird it was until later in life. Um, like the kids are kind of all scattered around, and my mom has this great idea. She's like, You know what? I think it'll be a good idea to get the whole family together, and I'm going to do this by buying a teepee. And it's not going to be a normal teepee. It's going to be a 30-foot tall teepee, like the ones that are in like The Last of the Mohicans.
Right.
And she orders it and it comes and it's massive. You can see it on Google Maps, and we live in a subdivision. She puts it up. She's like, we're going to have a pig roast. The family's going to be together again. And it's really weird. And my dad ends up moving out into this teepee for 3 years. And
And where's the teepee? In the backyard?
It's in the backyard.
And this became Dad's home?
Yeah, my dad lives in it. And he lives out there in the winter. He lives out there in the summer. And he like puts up flat screen TVs in it. And there's like electrical cords coming from the house out into the teepee. And like there's space heaters out there. He like wanders in to use the bathroom, but like lives out there. I think my mom ends up getting pissed and like kicks him out of the teepee. So like that happened. I ended up moving to New York. I graduated high school early and I was out. I had just had it. I got an internship at a dance studio in New York. And
to follow your ballerina calling?
Yeah, I was really excited. And I lived with my sister for a while. And I got injured soon after moving to New York. And I also started bartending soon after I moved to New York. And both of those things were like the combination of those two things just destroyed me.
An injury and working as a bartender?
Yeah. If another thing was thrown in there, it'd just be like the trifecta. You know, it was especially the bartending and my genetics, you know, it just completely sucked me in and chewed me up.
All right, before we get to that part,
yeah,
tell us more about the ballerina aspect. Like, all right, so you're bartending at night. How often? Like, is it every day of the week you're practicing? For how long? Do you have a coach?
I was dancing mostly like 6 days a week, and my first teacher was extremely abusive.
This is out in Michigan?
It was in Michigan, and she would hit us, and she was emotionally abusive, and she would humiliate us. And this was from an extremely young age.
Fat shame you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and I ended up going to a different studio with a teacher with a very different attitude. But those things were other things were very embedded in me. And when I moved to New York, you know, that abuse was really hard to get rid of.
And what was your coach like in New York?
My teachers in New York, it was a very different atmosphere. I had a lot of teachers, and it was a very more me-driven program in New York. Not abusive at all.
No, you got a scholarship or an internship?
Yeah, I got an internship. I was really proud of it.
So it's not costing you anything?
No, it wasn't costing me anything. But I feel like my career in New York didn't last as long as I had wanted it to. And my drinking just ate me up before I became who I wanted to be.
Well, you come here at 17.
Yes.
You got a job as a bartender at 17, 18?
Yes, I did. And it was exactly what my alcoholism wanted, you know. And I didn't know that I was even jumping ahead. I was an alcoholic until I went to rehab, you know, over a decade later.
Right.
So,
how long did you do the ballerina stuff before the injuries just took its toll and you couldn't do it anymore?
Maybe 3 years.
3 years you were doing it?
Yeah, probably.
Did you ever
Very short.
get into a show? Or were you just doing training the whole time?
More training.
Yeah.
And smaller shows.
So you did some smaller shows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nothing that like I wanted to do growing up, and trained for so hard. And I feel like it left such a big hole, as an adult, because that's what I wanted so badly.
And what type of injuries does a ballerina get?
It's funny that because I actually just had another surgery in November due to this.
Doing it?
Yeah, I had ankle reconstruction.
Really?
Again, I had ankle reconstruction back then, and I also had a knee surgery back then. So it's been a whole slew of injuries that I've just been dealing with throughout the years.
Yeah, I guess if you got bad ankles and bad knees, it's gonna,
Yeah.
it's going to impede on your career.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So you do it for 3 years, and you just like, I can't do it with the injuries.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we dive
And,
full time.
and I just wanted to drink more at that point. So
Well, now with the
that's
injuries,
that.
you got a reason to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Were you a victim that your career you wanted is now fizzled out from injuries, and now you got that victim mentality?
Yeah, and I think I was just making excuses, and I was like, "Oh, it's the injuries," but
Right.
really, I was like, I couldn't get a grip at that time over the drinking. I feel like it happened so quick, the drinking and the grips of the alcoholism. And I didn't know that at the time what that was, but I mean, it had such a chokehold on me so quickly.
So you're bartending from like what would be your starting hour?
I would probably go in around 4:35, and
Bartend till what time?
bars close at 4, but
4 in the morning.
back, I don't know how it works now, but the bartenders and everybody who works at the bar would party after the bar closes, and we would hang out till probably 7 and then go to after hours and be up till noon or a couple days later. And it would just be a cycle, and I remember, being like, I can't remember a day I didn't drink, and but I would always make excuses and be like, well, I don't drink in the mornings. But I would wake up so late. My mornings would actually be like 4 p.m. So I would start drinking when I got to work. So those were my mornings.
Right.
I was drinking in the mornings.
I had a friend in high school, and when I stayed over at his house one night, we got up, I don't know, 9 o'clock in the morning or so.
Yeah.
and his father's drink, he's got a glass of scotch and a beer at 9 in the morning, and the wife is like giving him crap about it, and he's like, I've been up since 4. It's like half my day now. It's,
Yeah.
I've been up for 5 hours. It's like, this is late in the day for normal people.
Yeah.
And, justifying it.
Oh, absolutely. You'll do
that's-
anything to justify
Right.
it. Yeah, it's easy.
Did you find, I found as I went through life, like I couldn't keep any boundaries. Like like you're saying, you're justifying, well, at least I don't drink in the morning, but your morning is, everybody else's afternoon, and
Yeah.
you're still sleeping.
Yeah.
But like, no matter what boundary I set for myself, like, all right, I won't drink in the morning.
Mhm.
And yet now I find myself filling my coffee mug with alcohol to go to work.
Mhm.
I won't do Coke during the week. Now I'm doing Coke during the week.
Mhm.
I would never, ever, ever touch heroin. Now I'm doing heroin. So like any boundary I set for myself, I couldn't keep.
Yeah.
Are you finding that also?
Oh, yeah. And absolutely. And I would do weird things like I'd be picking out my jewelry to go to work, and I'd be like, I'm gonna put on this ring, and if I'm gonna wear this ring, and that means that I won't drink tonight. And I remember I'd pour myself a shot and I'd be like, I'm wearing this ring. That means I can't drink. And then I'd do the shot and I'd be like, damn it, the ring doesn't work. The ring thing doesn't work. Just like bizarre, like little quirks. And I'd be like, well, why doesn't the ring make me stop? But I still didn't think that I was an alcoholic. Like, so I'm like, well, what is it then? Like, I still couldn't figure it out.
Well, we don't want to admit to ourselves.
I'm still not like those people. So
Right.
what is it? It must be depression and anxiety. So,
Right.
anything but.
It's just the lifestyle.
Yeah, it's just
the job I'm doing.
I'm
You have
just
to
a
drink.
bartender.
Right. And when did any other substances start coming into play? Was that soon as you started bartending?
I think when I started bartending, like the cocaine was more into play, but I think that later on, that wasn't more of an issue. I think later on it was the alcohol, and then the next day I was having such crippling anxiety that I was taking benzos to try to level out that anxiety. And
Anxiety from coke and alcohol, or just alcohol?
just the alcohol. So I was,
What, from like waking up feeling like crap and saying, what am I doing to myself?
Yeah.
So you just take
I was
benzos.
having like the most massive panic attacks, not knowing what I had done the night before. I mean, I was a Jekyll and Hyde drinker and I was a blackout drinker. So not knowing what situation I had gotten into, how I had gotten home from work, what I had done at work,
Are you like going to work saying, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when I walk in?
yeah, like having
just the fear of like, what did I do
no
last night?
control over my actions, being j- just just being I
Like
felt
manic?
like such a horrible person, and I knew that I wasn't a horrible person, but I felt so out of control. I didn't know how to get my life back into control, and waking up and near the end of I say near the end because I use that as like a kind of roadmap before rehab. Near the end, I'd have these, I would be waking up like in the hospital and having ER visits and not knowing how I landed in the hospital. And I think near the end, was averaging like 3 hospital visits a week.
Really?
Yeah.
And what would the nurses tell you? Like, why
I
am I
would-
here?
I would rip out, the IVs and walk out, and start panicking. And
Are you getting text messages from like coworkers or people like you were nuts last night?
absolutely.
Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. And me trying to like wiggle my way out of the situation and, talk my way out of the situation, apologizing a lot to people, my boyfriend at the time. And I was an absolute crazy person. And
And are you doing more coke now?
no, I wasn't. That was definitely like an earlier thing, I think.
Early on, you did the coke?
Yeah.
So you're like psychoses was all mainly out. Well, I mean, benzos will do that too.
Yeah.
Are you using those throughout the whole time?
Yeah, the next day I
Yeah.
was.
Right.
To try and calm
Not
myself.
at night. when
No.
you're so you were just pounding alcohol
Mm-hmm.
and then just becoming a nut.
Yeah. Total,
you had to be a
total nut.
handful, Annie. A
And
handful.
I was 2 handfuls. at least 2 handfuls.
And just ending up 3 times a week in the hospital and waking up and not knowing why you're there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Losing phones like crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just losing phones. Yeah. There was like a time where I lost 4 phones in 1 week.
And was your job ever at jeopardy? Did your bosses ever say,
Yeah.
like Annie, man, what you were out of it last night.
Yeah, but it was everybody was doing horrible things at work, and I was around other alcoholics.
What type
and
of place are you bartending at?
I
Is
was
it a nightclub?
I
Is it
was
a shot and beer
bartending.
joint?
I was bartending at a rock club
Which is what?
on the Bowery. So it was bands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, on the Bowery in Lower Manhattan. And it was like we were all so young, and we were just like going crazy. And for me to be like one of the worst, most out of control people in that place, like, is saying a lot.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You got to be taking it to another level.
Yeah.
And were you a shot and beer type?
Anything,
Yeah.
anything except Jen.
Yeah.
Surprisingly. Yeah.
And just losing your mind.
Yeah. And I think like I was drinking over like a half gallon of vodka a day, and before that like a bottle of wine. So, and I was just like shaking, and I had the shakes all the time, and
You know, we both know Father Rob, and I
Yeah.
had him on last week,
yeah.
and he said the same thing, that he was, doing communion on the altar, and he went to hand the wafer to a member of the congregation, and he was shaking so bad and she's looking at him, and he's looking at her, and he's like, we both know. And it reminded me of, I remember going to a Quick Check deli to like buy something, and I went to like go hand my money, and like my hand, I was so coked up and so jittery, my hand wouldn't work, so I had to grab my hand with the other hand
Yeah.
and hand the money like this to the cashier.
Yeah.
And it was humiliating. Like,
Yeah.
she had to be like, oh, he must have some MFs or something,
But I don't
But
have
no,
a
it's just
problem.
alcohol and drugs,
Right.
And you got the same thing now.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
The body's just deteriorating.
And the lieutenant of the state police who arrested me, he's like, when you were on your run, he goes, did you have an exit strategy? And I'm like, no, man, you're just riding the wave.
Yeah.
You know it's going to crash at some point, but
Yeah.
you just ride it until it does.
Right.
Like, there is no exit strategy. You can,
Yeah.
like, maybe in some pipe dream you have an exit, but it's never going to come to fruition.
Right. And just so out of touch with reality.
Right.
Yeah.
And it takes smacking bottom for most of us to. It's not like you're going to wake up one day and just be like, you know what, Annie Johnson. You're going to look in the mirror and be like, that's it.
No.
We're done. Like, you tried it with your ring theory.
Yeah.
My brother who's now deceased, he his childhood trauma like ate at him, and he used alcohol as a coping mechanism. And this guy he had neuropathy from diabetes in his feet real bad. And this guy at the gym said, take raw ginger root. And my brother started putting raw ginger root on everything. And he quit drinking for 8-9 months. And he's like, ever since I started this raw ginger root, I have no desire for alcohol anymore. So it was sort of his ring.
Right.
And then all of a sudden he's drinking again. And I'm
Right.
like, what the hell happened to the raw ginger root? You want me to go get you some? He's like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, you told me that took all your desire for alcohol away. You're bombed.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not, and it's just, it wasn't the raw ginger root that,
Yeah. Grasping at straws.
Yeah. We try to make up something,
Yeah.
but it takes going internally to
Yeah.
fix the problem.
Absolutely.
So you carry on this behavior for close to a decade?
Yeah. And it's alcoholism, as we know, is a progressive disease, and it gets worse and worse and worse. And
Where do you think you got it? Were your parents drinkers?
Yeah, my mom was a drinker, but it's definitely in my genes. And I think I also have been striving for perfection throughout my entire life, even in childhood and adulthood. Like, my siblings I feel like they're all so successful. You know, like my youngest brother's a scientist. My oldest brother's a really successful musician. My sister owns a restaurant. My mom has a doctorate now. You know, like, and I feel like I was always like the runt, and I feel I always felt like I failed at what I wanted to do, and um, I I was always like trying to be this person and failing. Um,
Now, during this stretch where your ballerina days are over and you're just living this decadent lifestyle,
mhm.
are you seeing family? Are they coming into the city to? Are they noticing? Are you doing any phone calls where you're half in the bag and they're like, "What's going on with
Well,
you?"
this is interesting, and also what I'm a little bit of what I'm going to touch on later when I'm in rehab. But I was just most of my family was in Michigan, and I feel like a lot of them didn't know the extent of it. I think my parents did. Um, I think I really I kind of destroyed my relationship with my sister. She lives in New York, and I was always dropping the ball, you know. Um, I was dropping the ball in all of my relationships, and I had pushed everybody away. I remember I woke up one morning and I felt like I had nobody. You know, I was so lonely, and and it was like I just had nothing to live for anymore. And um even that wasn't a wake-up call. I still didn't know what to do. And that was the time where I just wanted to die, you know? And I didn't know how to do it. I was just like waiting for something to kill me. And um I I when I finally landed in rehab, um and I was with I was in a relationship at the time, and I'm going to just glaze over this because I respect his privacy and his family and his current relationships. Um I he um put me in rehab, my boyfriend at the time, after an episode that I had. Um and I am so grateful to him.
Well, I
Um
mean, can you? I mean, he came home
he came
to like
home.
to a destroyed apartment,
Yeah, I had
and
just destroyed the apartment. You know, I had torn like
chandelier out of
yeah,
the ceiling,
chandelier
and
out of the ceiling. You know, I think I had torn all the artwork off the walls. It smashed some all the plates. You know, I was just horrible.
broke everything you could.
Yeah. And he was like, "I think you should go away for a while." And I was like, "Yeah, I think you're right." Um, and we looked for a place. Um, and I don't know, are we allowed to say the name of it?
Yeah, yeah. Alina Lodge.
Yeah, I wound up at this place called Alina Lodge, and I had never before this found or had any interaction with AA or sobriety or anything. And it turned out that this place was for bottom of the barrel addicts, alcoholics. Um, and they told me that it was going to be a month-long program. And so I was like, that's fine. I'll be there for 30 days. I'll like whatever. It'll be like a little
I'll
spa
dry. Maybe I
retreat.
just need a little drying out so I
Yeah,
can
I'll be
drink
fine.
normally.
And then I'll go back home and everything will be fine. And it was such a smack in the face. I got there, and they really just it was such a brainwashing experience. He had My boyfriend came 2 weeks later, broke up with me. I realized that I had no place to go back home to, and
Now he came and they did it. you had an intervention.
It was an intervention.
An intervention in a rehab.
In a rehab.
I don't know if I've ever heard of that.
Yeah. But along with that, everything was so shocking there. Like, it was a non-permissive place. And
Which means what?
I mean, you're really not allowed to do much there. Like, you're allowed to listen to music like once a month for 45 minutes. You're allowed to do art once a month. Like, you're not allowed to look at the men. They're writing down everything you do. It's a really bizarre experience, and I'll probably spend the rest of my life processing it. But it was just what I needed. That 1 month turned into 8 months. They scholarshiped me. And just slow it down a hair. yeah.
So your boyfriend comes and breaks up with you your second week in rehab.
Yeah.
During an intervention.
Mm-hmm.
And is it like, when did it dawn on you like, I'm a mess? I'm like, because you went in there just thinking, all right, I'll do this for a month. And
Yeah.
I'll go back to, my lifestyle and I'll be able to handle it better.
Well,
at what point were you like, I really gotta?
When did it dawn on me that I was a mess?
Yeah.
I remember the medical director there, who was like the big wig. He was like the big scary guy who never smiled. I remember him looking at me and he goes, "You're a mess." And I remember being so angry and upset. I was just crying all the time. I remember just screaming and like throwing things and fighting it tooth and nail.
You're still doing your throwing thing in rehab.
Yeah. I was a mess.
Right.
And at some point, everything changed. They had matched me with the most amazing counselor, and it was like she was like an angel. I needed her so badly, and she changed my life. I just did everything she told me to do. I was so desperate at that point, because I knew that if I didn't change, number one, I was never getting out of there. Number two, there was no chance to feel better. And I just didn't want to feel like shit anymore. She literally gave me a list of things to do to feel better, and I just started doing them.
Can you share a couple of the things on the list? Like what type of stuff are we talking?
I mean, it was stuff like a gratitude list, It was like
I do those myself.
Yeah, it was like letting stuff go. It was like a God box or stuff like that. She just absolutely loved me until I was able to love myself again. She would just let me come into her office to just sit there and be with her, and draw, even though drawing, that wasn't allowed. And she was like, "I know you don't want to be here, but just embrace this, because you will probably never have this ever again." And I just absolutely threw myself into that program, and I was like, she's right. I don't come from money. My
Right.
family doesn't have money, and I'm never gonna get this opportunity ever again. My boyfriend graciously paid for the first I think 3 months
Really?
of that program for me, even after he broke up with me, which I'll forever be grateful for him for. He absolutely changed my life. I mean,
that's a decent dude there. Like a lot of guys would just be like, I got to get this nut out of my hair and be done with her.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
sorry for calling you a nut, by the way.
I will.
You glanced right over that.
I will absolutely call myself a nut over and over. But yeah, I was like, she's right. I needed that time and space to
My audience will be like, he called her a nut. You can't do that to somebody pouring their guts out.
I was. Yeah, I needed that time and space away from who I
People,
was.
places, and things.
Yeah.
I mean,
and like that month turned into 3 months and 5 months and 8 months. And I needed that time.
you spent 8 months in this facility?
In that facility.
Yeah,
And then
awesome.
at that 8 months, I was like, okay, great. I get to leave. And they were like, nope, we're transferring you to a halfway house. And I was like, oh shit.
Where did you think you would go when you left?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Somewhere else. Anywhere else. But they transferred me to a halfway house.
Was there anybody else in that rehab who had been there for 8 months?
Oh my God. That was the shortest time.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, I think the minimum time people are there is a year.
Really?
Yeah. So I was like on the fast track.
You always
there.
hear these 30-day rehabs, and it's just like,
No.
it's, my therapists have all said it takes like 18 to 24 plus months for your brain to rewire.
Yeah.
And like people go in and do a 30-day rehab and think, I'm good. That's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you're not good.
Yeah. It was pretty wild there. And so I went to this halfway house, and that was another wild experience. And I learned way more about myself there. It was different in a whole different way than Alina was. And
What do you do in a halfway house? Are you working outside of it?
yeah, and I had you slowly get more freedom, and but in a really weird way. I was slowly reintegrated into the world, and that was really bizarre, like walking into a store again, or
Is it? Yeah. When I got out of prison, my
Yeah.
very first day, my niece picked me up, and I had no clothes.
mhm.
So she took me to Kohl's, and we went on a shopping spree. And like I had to use the bathroom, and
Yeah.
I asked her to walk me to the bathroom because I was afraid to, walk by myself. She's
Mhm.
like, "Big bad you is afraid to walk to the bath." I'm like, I go, "Just shut up and walk me to the bathroom, will you?" Like,
Yeah,
and you felt the same thing going
Yeah.
into a store was like,
absolutely. Like panicking,
Yeah.
and like for a really long time, like because we weren't allowed to like look at men. Like I had a really hard time. Like I thought it was like really bad, like interacting with men for a while. Like that was really weird. Like relearning how to do that. But yeah, I had like these sober jobs.
well, when I had a therapist in prison,
Yeah.
and when I was getting close to getting released, she's like, "Clark, you've used sex as a drug and as a coping mechanism your whole life. I'm telling you, when you get out of here, don't do drugs, don't drink, and don't have sex. You need to just learn to live by yourself without any of those old crutches."
Yeah.
So like, we went on a walking date or to a diner or something like, but in the back of my head, I have my therapist in prison, like, "You're not having sex, you're staying celibate, you're not going to do that," So it's just
Yeah.
like, and I was so like skittish for
Mhm.
probably like a year after my release.
Yeah.
And just like trying to find my way back in society. Like, because I went back to where I was from, and I was always high and drunk, and my party buddies were there. And so like I'm learning to live without them
Mhm.
and without going to my old stops, and to just form a new life. And so yeah, so the same thing, like you're talking about, I don't even talk to guys anymore,
Yeah,
So,
it's so bizarre. And like as an adult, like
right.
like you, it's like you feel like a child or something. And I got a job, my first job at the halfway house. I worked at a YMCA, like teaching water aerobics to elderly people. And then I was
That's great.
working at a diner, and I saved all my money because I wanted to move back to New York. And I finally graduated the halfway house. I think I was there for like 9 or 10 months or something. And my sponsor and her husband, who are just amazing people, let me move in with them. And I truly believe that that's what really kept me sober. I lived with them for about 2 years in New Jersey, and I needed that extra 2 years outside of rehab and the halfway house to really keep me sober and learn how to stay sober on my own.
So you got 2 years with them, 8 months in the rehab, and how many months at the
Like 9 or 10, I think.
at the halfway house?
Yeah.
So you got over 3 years, 3.5 years roughly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I needed that time out of the city and to learn how to just be with myself. And I mean, they were so amazing. They taught me how to drive. I got my license for the first time in my life. You know, I figured out my finances. I got out of debt. I did everything on my own. And she's still my sponsor. They're so amazing. They're like family to me. And I I've just been so lucky to find such an amazing support system and sobriety.
And you met your sponsor at an AA meeting outside of the halfway house or in a halfway?
She actually came and spoke at my halfway house
Okay.
while I was there.
Right.
Hmm.
And then just how did you two hook
It
up?
was like the sky opened up.
Yeah.
And she came down, and I was like, "Will you be my sponsor?"
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she said, "Of course, Annie."
Yes. Yes.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 3.5 years roughly to get yourself on track.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Recalibrate your neural pathways and learn how to just
Yeah.
live like a human.
Yeah.
Instead of the animals we become.
Yeah.
We get used to living like an animal.
Mm-hmm. And like during that time, I like in rehab, I was still like really lonely, but in such like a different way, you know, than I was like in active addiction. You know, I was just like learning how to find myself again, and that was really, really scary.
For how long, like when I was in prison, or in the county jail, my first 2 years in there, I'm like, my mind's saying to me, if we can ever, I'm facing life, and,
Yeah.
and life is looking like a real possibility. But my mind's saying, if we can ever get out from under this life sentence, I can't wait to have a glass of red wine and a line of Coke. Those two were like a perfect combo.
Yeah.
And I'm facing life in prison, and that's what my mind's saying for the first 2 years. Like, let's get out of this, let's get a line, and let's get a glass of red wine. And then somewhere like in the start of that third year, like it was just like a light bulb. Like, you'd have to be out of your friggin' mind to go back to doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So how long did you face those desires, like of like, man, I needed, or didn't you?
I
Or
mean,
was it for the first month, or?
I think it took me like a full 4.5 months to realize that that I had a problem, you know? I think that over those 4.5 months, I wasn't really having cravings or anything because I had just caused absolutely so much destruction to everything I touched. I think I was just really craving wanting to get out and make changes and build my life again in a different way once I realized that I was an alcoholic, and wanting to, uh, you know, take a right instead of a left.
Yeah. What was it like, when you finally, like, it dawned on you that you could wake up and just be at peace in the morning
Oh my
without
God.
having to like strive for a pill or a drink?
I mean, it gave me goosebumps when you said that. I mean, that feeling of peace
Yeah.
and which you've experienced too. It's such like a calming once you feel that peace that you've never felt before, um, it's I I hope that anyone listening, that's struggling, um, knows that there are resources, to get help because you too can have that feeling. It's the most amazing feeling, you know?
Before I got arrested, I would, before I would even go to the bathroom, I'd do a line of Coke just to go
Hmm.
brush my teeth and put eye drops in.
Yeah.
And then it'd be right to the kitchen for a glass of wine.
Yeah.
And then right back to the bedroom
Yeah.
with a couple pain pills
Hmm.
and another line. And that's how I'm starting my mornings.
Yeah.
Like it's complete, like there's no calm, no peace, no
Yeah.
just exhaling slowly. It
Yeah.
was all just insanity.
Hmm.
And like I can't even like fathom doing that now.
No, it's crazy. And also like touching on the family and the relationships again, like my sister would, like I was able to build that relationship back
Back
up.
up? Oh, great.
And she would come and visit me in treatment on like visiting days. And
Did your parents fly in to visit you?
my mom and my sister-in-law surprised me on one visiting day. um and that was so amazing. And they were able to they let them spend the night, so they were able to experience like the weird Alina Lodge
Oh, yeah.
experience. Yeah. um and yeah, I never thought like my family was so there for me just because I was so out of it, but like holy shit, they showed up, and I was so glad I got to repair my relationship with my sister. And like my dad wrote me every day, and my aunt sent me a postcard every day. And I I figured like my uncle, who I never had a relationship with, I found out he was sober. And it was just so amazing how all these I got to repair all these relationships.
And all right, so for somebody who's like on the fence of quitting drinking, and I have a lot of people come to me like, you know, they're just afraid to let go of that, couple glasses at nighttime to help them sleep and to wind down. And what what are some? All right, so what's Annie's method of going from the old you to the new you? I mean, what was it? Is are you still in AA? Was it AA meetings? Was it new habits, new eating, exercise? What all transformed you? What created the new you?
um I think this is a little tricky because I was I got shell shocked. I got put into a program that was, for extreme addicts and alcoholics. And, I don't think that people dabbling and, uh, like, oh, how about, you know, my, I go to an AA, they're not going to get that
Well, I say
experience.
some dabble, others are full blown who reach out to me.
Yeah, I mean, I got thrown into that, and that's what I needed. I do still go to meetings. I don't go every day. I try to go to at least one a week. I really am interactive with my sponsor and my sponsees. Um, I am really, really active in paying my experience forward, and helping anybody that reaches out to me. Um, but I'm a true believer that there are many avenues to getting sober.
Right.
And
And that's why I have guests on, because I want to
yeah,
hear how they've done it.
yeah. And I am really a true fan of AA, and I think that it works for a lot of people. I think that AA can be a little scary for people um, because of, I think people can be turned off because, they hear because of the religious aspect, because that on first glance, you might not understand that, you can
Have a higher power
have a
without
higher
it being
power.
religious.
But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to get sober, and I think that if you're interested in getting sober, if a good way to get sober is by just reaching out to somebody who is sober and seeing how they did it
Right.
and how they might want to help you.
I think the important thing is that you need that 30 days isn't going to cut it. Like, you need a lot longer than that. My brother was sober 8, 9 months and it didn't work.
Yeah.
And then when you go back tenfold.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with him. And it just was a steady decline.
Yeah.
And had you left after 30 days and gone back to the city and tried to get your old job back and sleeping on somebody's couch,
Yeah.
we might not be talking today.
No, my death was interrupted for sure. So
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's, like I say, somewhere in that third year, like it just dawned on me, like I'd have to be nuts to go back to the way I was.
Yeah.
And just, the lies you tell and the idiotic stuff you do. And I got the shame from my childhood abuse eating at me. And then I got the shame of what my addiction's making me do, the stupid off the wall stuff like you're talking about. And that shame is what just kills us. And that shame is what's putting you into panic attacks and eating benzos like your Tic Tacs. And
Yeah.
yes. And to really, to get past shame, I think really the only way to do it is to talk about your shit.
Yeah.
And, silence is a killer. Shame is a killer. Anger's a killer. And I want people to come on and speak their truth and be free. And that's really, isn't that what freed you when you could talk about it without being so ashamed about talking about it?
Absolutely. And I do think that AA does give you that.
Right.
And it doesn't keep you alone. And it does give you people who will always be there for you. And I always say, like, in meetings, like you're around people that you've never met before, a bunch of strangers you don't know. And if you needed something, they would always be there for you, and that's a really cool thing about AA.
Right.
I really like that about AA. And Clark, I'm so proud of you and what you're doing, in your
Thanks.
sobriety, and keep speaking.
How long are you sober now?
I will have 9 years
Wowzers.
on June 30th. Yes.
Did you ever think you'd be 9 years sober, like back in the day?
No. Oh my God.
Me neither.
No. What's your date?
In June, I'll have 12 years.
Wow.
And I just never saw a reason not to drink or party. Like that was just my lifestyle. It was with everybody I was hanging out with's lifestyle, and like, why would I want to be sober?
Yeah.
What's up with that? Like, why?
Yeah.
And then now it's just like, I can't even imagine. I've worked in restaurants and had access to the liquor cellar, and like never once, I can honestly say, never once have I like had that devil in my mind saying, let's grab one of those bottles and go into the corner and chug it, just never. And I've had a lot of trauma since I got out of prison. My brother's death, obviously, and all sorts of other stuff. And never once did I say, I mean, what happened? Did I say I want to go drink? I think as you get sober, you realize and you grow, you realize you can face problems without having to capitulate to drinking or drugs.
Yeah.
And I think that's what all the other people who aren't sober, that's their first instinct. You know, when there's like something severe, it's like to reach for something.
Yeah. We have, those coping skills
Yeah.
now.
Or lack of.
Yeah.
You know, drugs and alcohol and sex were my coping skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's horrible. And, yeah, I wake up every morning and just say thanks for a new day.
Yeah.
You know, and then the old me, like you said, you were just waiting to die. Like I could give two craps about living. Like back then, waking up was misery.
Yeah.
I hated waking up. So the first thing to do was start getting high.
Yeah.
You know, 'cause, I just didn't appreciate life.
Yeah, or like looking in a mirror. I remember like I went years without being able to look into a mirror. Like I remember the first time I looked into a mirror in rehab and I was like, oh my God, like I just hated, like I didn't want to look at myself, because I hated myself.
Right.
It's like,
And how about now?
oh, now I'm just so self-obsessed. But no. Just kidding.
So you're sober for a good stretch here.
Yeah.
How has your life turned around otherwise?
It's amazing how like I have these tools, and I'm like toxicity it has left, those relationships, and I don't want anything like that in my life anymore, and I'm able to communicate with a partner, and I just want to love and not hate, and I'm in a loving relationship, and I have an amazing job, and with security.
You're working on movie sets as a makeup artist?
I'm a makeup artist. I work in film. I was able to come back in New York and completely rebuild my life, like from zero. And I have
Were you afraid when you came back to New York?
absolutely.
Yeah.
I didn't think I'd be able to do it, and I think I said a couple months ago to like my mom, I was like, I'm really proud of myself, and like I was able to say that. Like I was like, I'm really proud of myself. Like I've come like a really long way. I'm doing things that I'm really proud of, and and I'm trying to help other people and people in need. And by no means do I not struggle with things, like anxieties, and I'm still working through stuff, but like I said, I have those tools now, and I have people to talk to, and I have that support, and it's so much better than my old life, and I would take this over that absolutely hands down any day.
Yeah, it's awesome. So,
Yeah.
so you go from a decade of insanity, multiple times a week, waking up in hospital beds, not knowing how you got there, destroying everything in your path, just being a crazy lady. Your ballerina career's over. That was what you were banking everything on. To ending up in a rehab facility out in the middle of Blairstown, New Jersey, of all places, and then just coming full circle back to the city, finding love, finding a new career, waking up peaceful, going to bed peaceful, having no desire for any toxic behavior. It is possible. It's possible for all of us.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean life is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you don't have anxiety or bouts of depression here or there, but you handle it on life's terms now.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what I've found too. And that's where my life's at also.
Yeah. Always moving forward.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So very proud of you.
I'm proud of you too.
Thank you. I'm glad you came here and shared it.
Thank you so much.
I want to give people a broad range of people who've dealt with whatever trauma. You
Mhm.
know, the next guest I'm interviewing, you know, he lost both his sons within a year, and now so you know, your trauma was alcoholism. You know, mine was sexual abuse. You know, the next guy is losing, you know, both sons. And I just want to show people we can overcome. You know,
Mhm.
and talking about it's the number one way to do that.
Yeah.
So I'm honored you came on.
Thank you so much.
Bless you, Annie.
You too.
So there we have it, everybody. Annie Johnson, from chaos to serenity. It's possible for all of us. Sobriety just changes your life, allows you to deal with any gut punch that life throws at you without having to crumble from it. So, Annie and I have done it. You can do it too. I thank you for being here and for listening and for watching. And hit the subscribe button on YouTube, damn it!